You think you know what fear looks like? You think you understand brutality? Nah, man. Forget The Godfather, forget Scarface, forget all that Hollywood bullshit. You ain't seen nothing until you stood in a damp basement in Harlem with Ellsworth, Bumpy Johnson holding 2 glass jars. When Frank Lucas walked into that darkness on 141st and 7th, he was already a hard cat. Country boy from North Carolina who clawed his way up in the concrete jungle. He was Bumpy's right hand, his shadow, the man at the door when big deals went down. Frank had seen dudes get shot, stabbed, thrown off roofs. He thought he had a stomach of iron, but nothing could prepare him for what Bumpy had in his coat that rainy night. It wasn't a gun, wasn't a knife, just 2 simple glass jars. That night in the belly of Harlem, Frank didn't just watch a man die. He watched the devil himself, dressed in a $1,000 Italian suit, teach a lesson that made hell look like paradise. This wasn't a hit. This was a ceremony. To understand what happened in that basement, you gotta know 1960s Harlem. It wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a kingdom with its own laws, borders, and royalty. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just a gangster, he was the emperor. He moved through the streets with terrifying grace. Politicians bowed, cops looked away. The toughest hustlers in New York trembled at just a look. Bumpy was a chess player in a world of checkers. He read philosophy, played the long game, understood that violence wasn't the goal, it was just a tool to keep the peace. Then there was Frank Lucas, the student, the apprentice. Frank was hungry, soaking up the game like a sponge, learning how to dress, talk, command a room without raising his voice. But there was one lesson Frank hadn't learned yet. What happens when someone breaks the ultimate rule? The code. See, the streets have a code. It's unspoken, but written in blood. You can steal, hustle, even kill another soldier if business demands it. That's just the life. But there are lines you don't cross. You don't touch made men without permission, and you damn sure don't touch the innocent, the families, the civilians not in the life. Wives and children are off limits. That's sacred law. Enter Icepick Red. Red was grimy, a wild card, a hitman who killed for sport, with no code, no honor, and eyes like broken glass. He made other gangsters nervous just walking in a room because you never knew what he'd do next. He was useful for dirty work, sure, but he was a rabid dog on a loose leash, and that leash snapped. Greed got to Red's head like cheap moonshine. He decided he wanted what belonged to little Willie. Willie was good people, loyal to Bumpy, a solid earner, but he kept his life clean. He lived in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, in a nice house with a manicured lawn, trying to keep his wife and kids far from the madness of 116th Street. Willie thought the river between New York and Jersey would keep them safe. He was wrong. Icepick Red didn't care about boundaries. One night, fueled by envy and whatever he was sniffing, Red broke into Willie's crib. He wasn't satisfied with robbery. He tied Willie up in his own living room, and right there, in front of the man, in front of his terrified children, Red crossed the line. He violated Willie's wife in the most evil way imaginable, the kind of darkness that stains your soul just thinking about it. While Willie screamed, struggling against the ropes, watching his world burn, Red jammed his signature ice pick into Willie's chest, left a good man bleeding out on his own carpet, surrounded by the shattered pieces of his family. When word got back to Bumpy Johnson, the whole world stopped spinning. Frank was there when the call came. watched Bumpy pick up the phone, saw the color drain from the boss's face. Frank braced for an explosion, flipping tables, throwing chairs, screaming for blood. But Bumpy didn't scream, just a deadly, quiet storm. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Bumpy hung up gently, stood up, adjusted his tie, and looked at Frank with eyes suddenly older, colder. 3 words: get the boys. Frank knew right then, Icepick Red was already a ghost. He just didn't know it yet. The hunt was quick. In Harlem, you can't hide from the king. The streets talk, the sidewalks whisper. Homeless, bartenders, shoeshine boys, all eyes and ears for Bumpy. Within hours, they found Red on 134th, leaning on a post, looking arrogant. He thought he got away with it. Frank and Doc Holliday rolled up in a black sedan, rain falling, cold and miserable. Red tried to laugh it off. He spit on the ground, said he didn't have time. Didn't even reach for his waist. Frank had that .44 Magnum in his face. Doc jammed a shotgun in his ribs. Get in, Frank said. No emotion, just business. The ride was dead silent. No radio, no talking. Just tires on wet pavement and windshield wipers counting down the seconds of Red's life. Frank wanted to end him right there, thinking about little Willie, those kids in Jersey. But Bumpy had given strict orders. Bring him to me alive. Bumpy directed them to an abandoned building on 141st, a concrete skeleton, a construction project that ran out of money and was left to rot. No tenants, no lights, no witnesses, just a hollow shell waiting for a ghost. They dragged Red down to the basement, a maze of shadows, rusted pipes, debris, one bulb dangling from a wire, swinging, casting long shadows on the walls. Bumpy told them to strip Red naked, completely. Shivering, terrified, stripped of clothes and dignity, they handcuffed Red to a thick steam pipe. He looked small now, pathetic. The arrogance gone, replaced by primal shaking of prey that knows the predator is near. Bumpy walked up calm, too calm, like a doctor prepping for surgery. He stared into Red's eyes, searching for a soul that wasn't there. Some people are just animals, Bumpy said softly, voice echoing off concrete. They don't deserve life, and they don't deserve a man's death. Bumpy reached into his coat. Frank held his breath, expecting a razor, maybe a hammer. Instead, Bumpy pulled out those 2 jars and a cheap paintbrush. One jar filled with thick, dark gold liquid, honey. The other jar was alive, a dark, shifting mass climbing the glass walls, frantic, energetic. Bumpy took out a small penknife. With precise, artistic movements, he made cuts on Red's face. A slice by the right eye, the left, the neck. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to weep blood. The metallic smell mixed with damp basement mold. Then Bumpy opened the honey. Sweet scent filled the air, sickeningly out of place in a torture chamber. He dipped the brush, coating it in thick syrup, started painting Red's face over the open cuts, over his eyelids, his lips. Then he went lower, painted the most sensitive parts of Red's body with that sticky, sweet trap, made sure every inch of soft skin was covered, Red was twisting, pulling at the cuffs, sweat pouring. He knew something terrible was happening, but his brain couldn't process it. Honey? Cuts? It didn't make sense. Then Bumpy held up the second jar to the light. Fire ants. Hundreds of them. Not your regular picnic ants, big, angry, red bastards. How Bumpy got fire ants in a New York winter? Maybe flown in from down south. Didn't matter. Bumpy Johnson could get anything. He don't deserve to die easy, Bumpy whispered. He took his time with Willie's family, so we're gonna take our time with him. With a flick of his wrist, Bumpy opened the jar and poured the contents over Red's honey-soaked, bleeding face. The reaction was instant. The sound from Red's throat was ungodly. Not a scream, the sound of a soul being ripped apart. The ants, smelling sugar and blood, went to work immediately, aggressive, hungry. They crawled into fresh cuts on his cheeks, bit into his eyelids, trying to get to the moisture of the eyes. They swarmed his manhood, drawn to honey in the most painful places imaginable. Imagine your body on fire, 1,000 hot needles hitting simultaneously, over and over. You can't move your hands to brush them off. Can't scratch, can't run. You just stand there, naked, chained, feeling every single bite. Frank watched, his own skin crawling. He wanted to look away, run upstairs and breathe fresh air. He knew Red deserved it. The punishment fit the crime. But watching a man get eaten alive, minute by minute, that was heavy. A weight that sits on your chest and never leaves. Bumpy didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't look like he was enjoying it. Just watched, cold and detached, like an Old Testament judge delivering God's sentence. Justice in its rawest, ugliest form. "Let's go," Bumpy finally said, dusting off his hands. They turned their backs on Red. As they climbed the stairs, the only sound was frantic clinking of handcuffs against pipe and muffled, high-pitched screaming of a man losing his mind in the dark. Here's what kept Frank awake for years. Bumpy didn't let him die that night. If Bumpy had shot him, it would have been mercy. But there was no mercy for Red. Next day, Bumpy made Frank drive him back. Frank didn't want to go, could still hear the screams. But you don't say no to Bumpy. When they walked into that basement again, the smell hit them like a physical blow. Foul. Dried blood, human waste, rotting sweet syrup. Red was still breathing, but he didn't look like a person anymore. His face was a swollen, pulsating mess of red welts, eyes swollen shut like balloons. But the ants were still there, crawling in and out of his nose, in and out of his ears. He wasn't screaming anymore, didn't have the strength, just whimpering. A low, bubbling, broken sound of pure madness. His mind had snapped hours ago, lost in a world of pain we can't imagine. Frank broke, looked at the boss and pleaded, "Why don't you just shoot him, Bumpy? Please, just end it." Bumpy turned to Frank, face hard as granite, looked at the wreckage on the pipe, then back at Frank. "A quick death is for men," Bumpy said. "This is for traitors, for people who touch families." They left him again. 2 days later, they came back. The silence was heavy, thick enough to cut. Icepick Red was finally gone. What was left wasn't a body. It was a shell. The ants had cleaned him. Hollow sockets where his eyes used to be. His face a mask of bone and chewed meat. The floor around him a carpet of dead ants and dried fluids. Frank Lucas, the man who'd become the biggest heroin dealer in American history, the original gangster who smuggled dope in coffins, walked out of that basement and threw up right there on the curb. Emptied his stomach until there was nothing left. Frank learned a lot from Bumpy Johnson over the years. strategy, economics, leadership. But that lesson in the basement, that was the most important one. He learned the difference between violence and power. See, any punk with a $20 gun can pull a trigger and kill a man. That's cheap, easy. But it takes a different kind of mind, a different kind of will to bring hell to earth, one jar of ants at a time. It takes discipline to delay the kill. Let the suffering be the message. Bumpy sent a message that day that echoed through every alley and pool hall in Harlem. No one dared cross the line with civilians because everyone knew death might come quick if you were lucky. But if you really messed up, Bumpy Johnson might just go to the pantry and get the honey. That building on 141st Street is gone now, demolished, replaced by new housing and paved roads. But the old heads in Harlem who were around back then, they say the ground there is still cursed. They say if you walk past that corner on a real quiet night, when the wind dies and the traffic stops, you don't hear the city. You hear a low buzz. And underneath that buzz, a soft, broken whimpering that never, ever stops. And listen, if you want more of these real, gritty, uncensored stories from the history of organized crime, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started.